Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Riverdale. A great episode. I really love this whole situation with, first of all, like the Shadow Lake cabin or lodge trip that, Archie, Betty, Veronica and Jughead took. And just like a little couples retreat, but it turns sour because obviously you have Jughead interrogating about the whole like Lodge family situation. It just starts off small. Then there's the whole like Veronica and Jughead kissing thing, and just seeing how uneasy it just kind of bothered like both Jug and Archie. Then there's like the back and forth. I'm like, also the weird thing about like them hearing each other having sex, and it's just like, because at first Jug and Betty are kind of talking, and they hear the bed squeaking, and it's like, really, is that their response to everything? And then later on it happens when Archie's kind of pissed about the whole kiss situation, and you hear them across the room. Especially kind of weirder because Betty went all dark Betty for it, which even she kind of like she tells Veronica about it. It's like, oh yeah, the last time she did that was with Chuck. And it's kind of weird to think about, like, oh yeah, you're using it in an intimate sense, but that was kind of used as kind of like to lure someone in and kind of punish them sense. And I don't know, that whole Dark Betty thing is weird when you think about it in an intimate sense after what it was like initially came up about. It just, nevertheless, it's just kind of funny and weird to think about. But nevertheless, and I love that Jughead nailed it when he said, like, basically they have a very complicated relationship. It's like, well, we're best, Jughead and Archie are best friends. Veronica and Betty are best friends. It's like, well, Veronica's one of your best friends, and I mean Betty's one of your best friends, but she's dating your other best friend, and you're also dating her best friend, and it's just kind of a complicated situation. And he says the best description, that they are essentially a powder keg just waiting to explode, because it's just all these little things between them. Obviously, Jughead and the servants have their problems with the Hiram, in particular the lodges, because obviously he buys Sonny what are the homes that him and the other serpents live in, and obviously Jughead's like, no, obviously this is some bigger part of our plan. Initially Betty wasn't all for it until, like, oh yeah, her parents newspaper place got bought by it too, and it's like, whoa, okay, like Hiram's up to something. So you have like a huge division. I'm actually surprised when it's all said and done that everything ended as well as it did. I mean, to be fair, like a crisis happened to kind of ease that tension, but that's stuff that's not going away, because this group, and it's something that's been there since like season one, there are little cracks in their friendship, this bond that they had. The fact of the matter is, it might not be able to last forever, just because there's little things here and there that's kind of tearing them apart. Because the sad thing is, they are not the same people that they were back in season one. And it's kind of along the same lines. It's kind of like the whole, oh yeah, Archie and Jughead situation. I mean, Archie and a Betty situation, which involves Jughead, because Jughead was the only one who didn't know. Let's not forget, Archie already told Veronica, but it's like Cheryl told him just to kind of spite him. But obviously, I'll get to that in a little bit. But like, no matter what, like going forward, this weekend away that we're having is going to carry on. Like, it's going to be something that you're going to still see kind of thrown back and kind of dealt with. I strongly believe. But obviously the biggest aspect of this was like the break-in, and Veronica immediately recognized one of the dudes. And when it was all said and done, every time like Archie, you can tell he was getting madder and madder. It's like I was halfway expecting him to kind of like go on the attack, but he didn't, because he wanted to make sure everyone would stay safe. But it was just, you could tell, he saw it. He was like thinking about the Black Hood. It's like what the Black Hood took from him, and he was like, I'm not gonna let that happen again. So when the guy took something from Veronica and ran, Archie just went into autopilot and just went after him. Andre caught up to him and it was like, Archie, go away. And then Archie leaves, and here's bang. Because from the very beginning, we knew Andre wasn't just some like, oh, driver and bellhop type of thing. It's like, no, like Archie noticed the gun. So it's like, yeah, he knows how to deal with things when he needs to. So he is more like a bodyguard. But Archie didn't tell anyone else about what happened. The only person he talked to about it was Hiram. And to Archie, and I thought it was kind of a like good look at his character, is the fact is that, like, for him, the thing that made him mad the most is because he's thinking about the Black Hood. He had the chance to put the Black Hood down, but he hesitated. But then Hiram was like, no, the fact of the matter is, you did the right thing, because that ensured everyone's safety. Just telling him to take whatever he needs and not really active But I'm sure he also appreciated the fact is that Archie ran after the dude after he took something from that necklace from Veronica. And I love what it's is doing, because obviously, like, Archie's already had his dark path this season with like the red circle and everything, but it seems like Hiram kind of pushed that in his direction earlier in the season, and now it seems like Hiram's kind of pushing that too, because we see Archie kind of slowly drifting more towards the dark side. Like, he's not really seeing the evil that Hiram might be potentially up to, because for him, he just sees Hiram as like, oh, this is a good, honorable guy, and I respect him, and I love his daughter. So that's how it's a situation where it's like his loyalty might be blinding him to the truth. And at the same time, it's like, well, maybe Jughead's bias is blinding him to the truth. But at the same time, it's a situation where they kind of have to meet both ways. I think it's going to be something that going forward, like, Archie will be kind of looking at things very differently, because it's like, I mean, I don't know. How well does the whole situation with Andre killing that dude sit with him? And because I was about to say, I'm curious what Veronica is going to say when like if it ends up on the news, but it's like, she knows. Like, she's like, oh, you're lucky that Andre caught up to that guy before you did. Like I said, that's probably something, because Veronica was, when she found out about Andre actually being there, she was super pissed, and she was pissed that Archie knew about it but didn't say anything. It's like, no more secrets between us, but that seems to not be the case. I mean, that's definitely going to be something even more so going forward. So it's just an interesting situation, and I think Archie might be positioning himself to kind of, like I said, backtrack a little bit. Maybe we might see him being able to do that. It's like, oh, willing to die for the people, like willing to do whatever it takes for the people he cares about. Like I said, we saw what he did at the beginning about his dad's situation, like, and then, like I said, like I brought up earlier too, like creating a red circle and everything. So that's something to kind of keep in mind, I mean, because we still have no idea what this Souldale project is really about, except for the fact is that Hiram is buying up properties all over the place. For what purpose? I don't know. Like, we know he's part of the mobster gang. No one else really knows. So it's just kind of interesting, because he's butting heads with the Serpents, and they're kind of treated like a gang, which kind of are. But at the same time, it's like you have him being a mobster, and he's connected to these other mobsters and everything. So it's just kind of interesting. Like, what the ultimate goal is, we don't know. Maybe he's preparing Riverdale for somebody else, like someone to kind of come in and kind of take things over, is what he's buying up all the land for. Or maybe he's trying to get Riverdale. Maybe there's some secrets buried underneath Riverdale that he's buying. Like, maybe there's some, like, I mean, it's a random example, but say like, oh, there's some like oil reserves or something like that under Riverdale that no one else knows about except for him. Or maybe they're going to like bring all those other mobsters' businesses to Riverdale to make it so that Riverdale is this gigantic, like, quote unquote laundromat. What I mean by that is a place to launder their money. I don't know if they really use laundromats as a means for, like, as a term for something being a laundry for money. I don't know. I mean, laundromats, it could be laundries. Nevertheless, I'm curious to see what goes forward about this. Like I said, and it isn't just Archie that does have blinders on, because even from the very beginning, Veronica does too. But to be fair, she knows a lot more about this situation. To be fair, Archie kind of does too, which is kind of interesting, because like he knows who Hiram is. So it's kind of interesting that he is trying to defend him in front of, Jughead, because like he knows what kind of person the Lodge family is and what they're capable of, because he is kind of in the inner circle now. So it's something interesting to think about. And then there was also with the Jughead situation, was that whole thing about like that chick being like, oh yeah, you know about what happened here? Yeah, you better not say anything, because it'd be bad for Alice and Betty. And yeah, Jughead be like, wait, what? Almost like, what the fuck did you just say? Just because it's like, and then Betty's like, okay, come on, you see it. And he even warns Betty about it too, because it's like, well, takeovers don't just happen all at once. Like the Hiram's like a big spectacle. Sometimes they're just things you don't even notice, because we know like Chick, whatever he's doing, he's building himself a safety net here. He wants this life. He wants Hal kicked out, and he wants more so Alice, but more so, I think also Betty too, because he wants that family. It's like, oh, the family that he never had, the good life he never had. It's like either he's not really Alice's son, and he's like a con artist, an imposter playing the role, which is something I never even thought about up to now. Just so certain about, no, this is Chick, this is him. It's like he could just be a con artist playing the role, that the real Chick might have died years ago. We might be dealing with a situation like that. What other something else recently had that storyline, didn't it? I'm blanking on it, but something recently had that storyline. I know I'm definitely thinking of Blind Spot, but there was something else more recent, but I can't remember. But nevertheless, like I'm kind of throwing that out there as a thing. Potentially, that's who he could be. I'm very curious because like because that's another situation. Alice is unwilling to see Chick for who he really is. Hal kind of is, but I don't know. Speaking of Hal, and since it kind of connects, we deal with Cheryl in this episode. Her mom basically calling her a loveless, saying that no one will ever love her because basically she destroys everything around her. She kind of implodes things, and hence, like we brought up earlier, telling Jughead about like the Betty and Archie kiss simply because she wasn't invited to the group and she just kind of she was just so pissed. I think it's also, and it kind of comes up later on in an episode, but it also seems like it is kind of out of jealousy because she ends up talking to Tony, interestingly enough, that because Tony overheard, like, oh, like you must have a reason for doing what you did about the whole Jughead situation. She's like, well, it's just kind of who I am. It's like, but you can talk and touch her, and she kind of gets pissed off. We'll find out later on why. I kind of already had an inkling about it, but Cheryl was kind of like, she actually had a good friend, one of her best friends back in junior high, Heather. Her mom caught them in the same bed, called her a deviant and blah, 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 blah. And so that's why Cheryl acts the way she does, because I think she is jealous because everyone else has these happy relationships. They're being able to be open about how they feel about people. But for Cheryl, it's like, what do I have? It's like, the one good thing she had in her life like that, her mom ruined for her and called her, kind of a monster for it, so like I said, I kind of had an inkling because I felt like, oh yeah, if she's going to end up with anyone, I thought it was going to be Josie because of those whole pictures things. I was like, oh yeah, I didn't take that. I mean, maybe they were 100% meant to be like friendly, but under the circumstances, she got rid of Chuck and everything, like even though, because Chuck and Josie were getting close, and so that kind of showed you that duality to Cheryl's character, like how, like I said, she's a very complicated character because she can be cool and great and nice in one point in time, but at the next point she could be spiteful and kind of evil and uses things just because things don't go her way. So we could see what happened with Tony. Like it seems like, oh, there might be something between her and Tony, and it's like, oh, well, that's nice, but I'm curious. Like we've also seen who she is, and it's just like if things between Chuck and her and Josie went down because of her, which I'm heavily implying, and the show heavily implies it. It never directly ever said, and we've not gone back to that, but it seems like she was definitely a bit part in that. Then she's very possessive in a sense, like, but maybe that also came about because she wasn't open. Like because she's open with Tony, maybe something, good will come about it. I don't know. We'd have to wait and see. But another big thing that went down this episode also was the fact is the whole Josie thing, because it seems Josie, even before this episode, ended up finding out about the mayor and Sheriff Keller. Didn't really appreciate it, especially because it meant like her parents were potentially getting divorced. Oh, but what about Sheriff Keller? Well, he hasn't told Kevin or his wife. It's like, really? And like, oh, that's supposed to be okay. And so being angry, Josie ends up telling Kevin. Kevin ends up telling his dad. And then it all gets back to Mayor McCoy. And she's like super pissed because for her, it's like, that wasn't your right to do that. Like, I didn't want things to kind of play out this way because everyone has their choice. Like, because in Mayor McCoy's place, she talked to her husband about the whole situation. And I don't know. I mean, it's not like, I mean, to be fair, I don't know. We don't really know the relationship. Maybe she just wasn't simply happy anymore. Sheriff Keller probably makes her happy. But for her, it's just like, you didn't give Kevin or, Tom that choice. You didn't let Sheriff Keller just sit down and talk to his wife and son. You kind of forced his hand. Like, it's one of those situations of like, if you're going to have an affair, you might as well just leave the people you're with and just be with the person. I mean, not leave the people. Obviously, he's got a son and everything, so he has to consider that. But that's also a whole situation in this. They both have children. They wanted to try and consider their family situation. Plus, his wife's off, overseas and everything in the military, which even Kevin throws in his face. It's like, literally, mom is over there fighting for her life overseas, and you're over here having an affair. What the fuck? So I don't know, man. I mean, eventually, Josie ends up apologizing. She admits it was just because she was angry. And so ultimately they do have a sit down. It's like, we're going to have this big conversation we have to talk about. Things are not going to be easy between Kevin and his dad. There's already a little bit of a thing between them just because I think because Kevin seems like he always has trouble with his dad. Just, the whole gay thing. It seems like it's his dad, like, trying to understand him, I think. And it's just, it's still that, odd area, I think, that it's still that, like, but no matter what, it's like, you're still my son and I love you, but it's still that awkwardness of like, they don't really know how to really interact because we never really see them interact. It's kind of a little stiff between them. And I think that's just kind of an interesting, aspect. I feel like they've kind of like, in a little bits of times you see like Kevin interact with his dad, that you can really pick that up, you know? Also, the biggest thing I was kind of like, wait, what? Was the movie theater situation. I wasn't expecting it actually. Like, I was thinking maybe it's like an old school movie or something like that. To be fair, that was kind of what the drive-in was probably meant for anyway. But nevertheless, they're in theaters. Lo and behold, I was like, oh, there's Jennifer Garner. I was like, oh yeah, like, and then I look, I was like, wait a minute, this is that movie Love, Simon. I'm like, wait, what? I almost had to, I had to close on. I was like, oh, I'm kind of interested in watching that movie. I don't know if I want to hear any spoilers. And then Cheryl's literally saying lines for the movie. I'm like, I need to shut up. And that kind of makes me wonder on many different levels, just really quickly from an outside perspective, because I have no idea about this. Like, how is that possible? Especially because that's a super new movie. Like, has that movie come out yet? And if it has, like, is that why this came back a week later? What I mean is, like, everything else on the CW came back this week. Everything that was kind of taking like a 3-week break came back last week. Riverdale was the only thing that came back this week. So I'm wondering, was it because they had to wait till the movie to come out? Because I think the movie came out last week. I could be wrong. I could be super wrong about that. But I was wondering, is that it? I mean, is it because they showed just enough of the movie so they didn't have to pay a lot? Or is it also, did that count as free promotion? Like, what's going on there? Which is kind of interesting because, you know, the CW connection, because I've talked about it, but the actor who plays Wally on The Flash, currently playing Wally on Legends of Tomorrow, he's in that movie. I think it's like Keon. I'm blanking on the actor's name. I'm so pissed. Also found out, like, I don't think I ever talked about it. He's an Australian actor. I was like, what? That's so cool. I don't think I've ever heard his natural accent, so that's something I'm gonna have to look into. You know, me and accents, I get giddy about that type of thing. So, nevertheless, that was just kind of like an interesting thing. And to be fair, it kind of flows with the point of the story too, because like Cheryl's whole situation about kind of being, you know, potentially gay, that's kind of the whole plot of that movie. Like, Simon's like, oh yeah, I'm not. No one else knows who I really am, and I think that's why the movie hit her so hard, because like Cheryl could empathize, and like, it's so nice that it kind of flowed together like that. I don't know, it's such an interesting, you know, development. Like, I mean, overall, this, like I said, this entire episode was great. I'm so interested to see, like, especially where Cheryl's story takes us going forward. Also, stuff between her and her mom, because Tony's one of the only, it's not one, it's the only other person that knows about her mom's situation, because she's like, yeah, things are a little harder. I think that's why that whole situation hits her harder too, because it's like, oh, my mom gets to do whatever she wants to like, quote unquote deviant thing she's doing. If she was just with someone else and fell in love, that's one thing. But it's like, my mom demonized me for being in love with who I want to be in love with, and now she's having fun, and it's not fair. I think that's what pisses her off the most, because it's like, oh, you get to be happy and everything. And at any moment in time, every chance she ever got, her mom throughout the series, even to the point that we've seen so far in the series, her mom has always torn her down. So I don't know. It's a very destructive relationship that you have. So. But amongst all that, like I said, this whole chick situation, like I want to find out if I'm potentially right about that. I'm also curious about the whole situation with Hal, because Betty knows about that situation, and now Chick does too. So that is going to be used. Like, Chick is going to use that against Hal because he overheard that conversation. To be fair, that was when Betty was trying to defend him. Also, have that whole situation of Betty constantly checking the papers at the beginning because she's looking for any information about that body. So, I mean, that whole situation, it seemed like that really pissed Penelope off. That's what made her say all the things she did to Cheryl, is because it's like, oh, she was having fun, things were good between her and Hal, and then I'm about to say Penelope, and then Cheryl kind of ruined that for her. Like, I think that was legitimately feelings. That wasn't just her doing her thing of just kind of enjoying this lifestyle she's kind of acquired for herself. It was more so like, I think she legitimately likes Hal. I think she might have always had a thing for him, but there's always been problems between her and Alice, and now it's just kind of like, it's probably an added bonus because she gets to kind of like stick the middle finger up to Alice about the whole situation. So, and finally, also like the whole situation, like I brought up earlier, where our main four group, you know, like I said, at the end, they brought all their foreheads together. Like I said, it was extenuating circumstances. Like, obviously things left a little heated, but they calmed down because it's like, oh, we went through a traumatic experience. So I am curious to see like what the story has in tow for them, because it's probably going to be a little awkward where it's like, yeah, let's not be around each other for a while. It's like, yeah, you know, that type of thing. So we'll have to wait and see where everything takes us in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.